neighborhood, and my husband. So you'll know if you hooked up with the wrong person or the right person. Now, how did I start out knowing this? Is because 3 years ago I met my cousin Ron Lax, his grandmother, and I learned a lot about her. And knowing about her, I learned about my personal family. Now, in regards to that, Henrietta Lacks was a young black woman who was born in Halifax, Roanoke, Virginia. She was raised in Halifax, South Boston, and Clover, Virginia. She went to Johns Hopkins Hospital in the 50s to check on a lump that she found in her cervix, and it wound up being cancer. And the cancer is called HeLa because it grows outside of the body over 24 hours, every 24 hours. I still have Havana Syndrome, so that's what we're going to be talking about today, how Havana Syndrome is able to manipulate all this part of my body, from the way that I talk to my eyesight to the top of my head, and it's grinding, constantly grinding. And how it was able to hook me up with my husband, basically a manipulated marriage or basically a manipulated relationship. Now, on October 10th, see, that's Savannah Syndrome, October 4th of 1951, Henrietta Lacks died at Johns Hopkins Hospital. And she was only 31 years old, October 4th. So all this ties into my family and how our family was to wired to be in sync with each other. Now, my husband was born October 31st, 64. Now, being that he was born October 31st, 64, he was born the same day that she died, the same month that she died, the same age, 31, that she died. In 1964, the government sent their cancer cells out into space to see if the astronauts were to get sick, and they could be able to create a vaccine. And that's my husband. His father's name is Henry. So Henry matches Henrietta. And he also got the polio vaccine. So most of you don't know that her vaccine was in polio, HIV, COVID-19, monkeypox, dog food, tape, dentistry, cosmetics, the list goes on. The government even sent it to the moon in 64. They also tested it in the atom bomb to make sure that if the radiation got on people, would they be able to have a vaccine or a cream that was sensitive enough to cure their skin. Now, Henry had the polio vaccine, which I didn't know at the time that he was my father-in-law. And the way he walked was strange because he had a limp to the way that he walked. He walked sort of like Michael Jordan to me. And that's because he had the polio vaccine to save his life. And when the Tuskegee doctors, young black doctors with a white doctor overseas, put their concoction together, they came with the polio vaccine. A lot of the white people didn't want to give their kids the vaccine because they knew that it was a black woman's DNA in it. I don't know what that has to do with you saving your child from being in a lot of pain, because I'm in a lot of pain. And I'm sure my parents would do whatever it takes to save me from being in all this pain constantly, all the time. And the way that I talk. It's like my tongue gets stuck to the top of my mouth when I talk, because that's what the frequency doing. The frequency is like pulling me up out of my seat. I deal with it. I lived with it for 23 years. Obama called it Havana Syndrome when he went to Cuba in 2016. And Biden signed it into law in 2021, making it real. And the only other person that I know that knows about this is Patrick J. Murphy, because he was the one who got us our lawyers for my brother's case, as you all know, in previous podcasts. And he was the one who I believe talked to Obama, because we talked on the phone almost every single month except for a few months and 7, 8 years. That's a lot of talking to figure out what's going on with me and to have Havana Syndrome. But I don't know if the two have anything to do with each other, him and Obama, but I just know it was a weird coincidence that it all came out about the same time, that he became undersecretary of the Army. So, going back to my family, my mother-in-law is about Henrietta height, about 4'9". She's about the same height as Henrietta Lacks was when she died. My daughter has a best friend named with the last name Hopkins, after John Hopkins Hospital, where Henrietta Lacks died, for those of you who don't know. That's the hospital who stole her cancer cells and gave it to everyone around the world, and they all benefited off of it financially and didn't give the family anything until just recently when they hired Benjamin Crump to be their lawyer. They were suing the pharmaceutical companies. And of course, everything takes a while. And one of Benjamin Crump's co-counsel name is Kim Parker, which is just like my uncle's wife's name, Kim Parker. So names, zip codes, associations, birthdays, all of that has a lot to do with my life and Havana Syndrome. Now, with my son, my daughter also is tied into Barack Obama and Michelle Obama with their daughter named Sasha, because one day she was in elementary school. And she came home and she was like, it was a birthday party we was having for one of her friends at my house. And she was like, she wanted her friends to call her Sasha. And I was like, Sasha Ellis, she said. I'm like, Sasha Ellis, why do you want your friends to call you Sasha Ellis or Sasha? She said, oh, Mom, it's just a name I came up with when I was in 5th grade. That's what she told me lately when I asked her. When I say lately, over the last year or two. And I remember when I was younger and in my 20s and I was living in New York City and my girlfriends would tell me, well, don't tell people your name. Tell them a fake name. So I gave them Michelle. So I was like, they groomed us not only to assassinate the first Black American president on Inauguration Day with the Havana Syndrome, frequency manipulation of my thoughts on what to do, but also they manipulated my daughter and I to be like Sasha and Michelle. And then they tried to kill my son in a car accident and told me about it through the frequencies. See, the frequencies try to mimic my voice. And if it's digging in my frontal lobe is for memory, cognitive, non-cognitive thinking. It's for who you fall in love with, who you don't fall in love with, what you like to crave, what you like to eat, um, your sexual organs. All of that is up here in the frontal lobe. They can turn you on to a dog. I was told by a nuclear physicist named Patrick. A dog, any person, a man, a woman, a tree, if you're standing next to it. And the only way you can capture these people, he says, is that you got to be sitting next to them, pushing on the buttons, doing this. So that means it's American government that's doing this to me. And I'm trying to figure out why they're doing it to me. Is it because they're trying to steal our land in the country? Or they're trying to steal the cancer cell, tracking us, tracking me around my family? Also, to add to that, my son, getting back to my son, who they told me the voice can mimic your thoughts, godlike voice. Like Lester Hall said, Havana Syndrome is the invisible voice of the Havana Syndrome and the voice of the enemy. So it's the voice of the enemy, according to Lester Hall from NBC News. I didn't think of it that way. I just thought it was my voice, God's voice, and that was it. I didn't know there was a third party playing in my head and playing with my body. And they told us that we was too famous because my brother Ray died in police custody in 2013. That's how we got our lawyers through Patrick Murphy. And he got us on CNN, MSNBC, all of that for those of you who know in previous podcasts. And they actually told me that. And I was like, no. And then a few days later, he was in a car accident. So I know that whoever's doing this is also harming people, deliberately harming people, and causing them pain and misery because they told me about where the gun was on a police officer when Barack Obama and Michelle was walking in front of me at the inauguration. And how would I be able to do that? Because I was in the inauguration. I was a volunteer. That somebody got sick and they moved me up and I was able to get in. And by me getting in, they was able to wire me in the position they need me to be in. You see how it moves around? But it's constant moving around. And so and my son, how he gets hooked up with and he really relaxes that my husband and I met on April 4th. They got their marriage license on April 4th. They got married on April 11th. And my son was born on April 12th. And that's how my son get hooked up with Havana Syndrome. But I didn't sign it into law in 2021. So being that he signed into law, I know that they have something to do with the reason why they want to allow people like me to be able to file for funds, for mental health, and also whatever this is to get it to stop. It's a buzzing sound that constantly brings in my ears, like crickets. Even when Camilla Harris went overseas a few times, if you Google it, you can see where people on her plane was complaining, as you can hear, complaining about Havana Syndrome symptoms. So it does exist. It's just that no one's paying attention to me and my problems with it. So, but they know it still exists. That's the thing. They know it exists. I'm not in it for the money. I just want them to stop it. That's all I want. Them to just stop it and to allow me to have my freedom like everyone else. I feel trapped in this frequency. It's a trap. And so Henrietta Lacks is tied into my family that way. The pharmaceutical companies made billions, billions, and billions of money off of her. And they gave the family nothing. They had to sue to get their reward that they deserved to get from their grandmother, aunt, cousin. And it's shameful that people can get up in this world and see that. Just like it's shameful that they experimented on her while she was in the hospital, putting electrical rods up inside of her to try to get rid of the cancer, knowing that that's not what you do. They put electrical rods on my head and my body. They balled my head completely out. Completely out. I was bald headed. So I want to continue on with relationships. So do you think you with the right person? Do you think the man or woman in your life is the man or woman that you naturally chose? Or do you think the Havana Syndrome chose that person for you? Do you think you're gay because you're naturally gay or because you was born with a trait to be gay? Or do you think they try to do what they did to me, try to make me gay? Like men, women, children of all things, a dog, myself, masturbating, all of that. That's what they've been doing to me. I've been single. My husband and I have been married for 36 years. I wanted to say this. My husband and I have been married for 36 years. We've been together for 15. Before that, I was by myself with no man in my life at all. For all those years, they were manipulating my mind, thinking that I was. I was dating men, thinking that they were someone who were for me. But before the dating gets going and after the intercourse, then the relationship ends. As though it was meant to be that way. Like Monty for money, just like Kim Parker on the co-counsel team is also Kim Parker for my uncle's wife. They also have James Williamson, who was a friend of Barbara Johns. And Barbara Johns is the woman little girl who walked out of school at 16 that, that caused the landslide case of Brown versus Board of Ed in my hometown with my family and my friends. That's where my family comes from, Brown versus the Board of Ed, as you can hear, Havana Syndrome. The Brown versus Board of Ed, that's where that comes from. And it's it's part of it's part of the manipulation of having men come into my life to manipulate me physically, hoping to get another cancer cell from one of her family members. I think that's why they coded my whole family around me, because they was hoping that I could be trick or treat. And my husband was born on October 31st. I could be a trick or treat. Obviously, I was a trick and a treat for those men. They even let me date this man whose penis was the size of my pinky. And every time that I needed money, I had to ask him for money. He wanted me to do things to him to make him happy. And one day he wanted to put a cucumber up inside of me, but I wouldn't allow him to do that. And all the while, this thing was whining on my head. All the while, my tongue was rolling in my mouth. All while, I was going bald headed, I was told, but I didn't know that it was all because of the frequency. I just didn't know what the two, I didn't put the two together until after Obama called it Havana Syndrome in 2016. Then I was like, oh, so all this goes together, because listening to all the people on TV talk about their problems, I was like, I got the same thing, but I got extra. And that's what my neurologist is saying. You got what they have, but you got extra. They giving me extra, I guess because of the cancer cell, or I laying down in the country. All the while laying down in the country. So, getting back to the men. And another man named Robin, he used to abuse me, and he was on crack, which I didn't know he was on crack. When you're that naive about drugs and drug addicts, you don't know. He didn't look it, he didn't seem like it, but I guess he smoked it in his marijuana, I was told by someone else. And then I had to leave him alone because I didn't know. But I knew something was up because someone stole $328 out of my pocket in my closet. And it had to be him or my neighbors. And now that I know that people like him go searching for things, and he goes searching, they search in all the right places, and he stole my money. So I had to leave him alone. And so all those men in my life were manipulated to be in my life for those reasons. Not because my husband used to be a crackhead before I met him, or crack, someone who used to be on crack. And it's really shameful that they would do such a thing like that to Henrietta Lacks and make her seem like she was the scum of the earth, a horrible person, a mean, evil person, and even her daughter-in-law, Bobette Locks, to make it, because I got the same name and the same birthday as my cousin Ron's mom. Her name Bobette, my name is Bobette. She's born January 15th, the same as Martin Luther King. I'm born January 15th, same as Martin Luther King. So all that goes together, ties into her birthday, my birthday, names like Kim Parker. My uncle has a wife named Kim Parker. They have a co-counsel named Kim Parker. So they're trying to keep all our names to our families connected to the families of the lawyers and the people in the country. Because he's also born on the same day that my grandfather was born, March 10th. So I don't know what they're doing, the government, what they're doing, but they need to stop this. Altogether, they need to stop that. So getting back to my husband, they manipulated me from my husband years ago. They told me he was going to leave and find someone and I'll never get him back. I never thought that they would do that, thinking that it was a godlike voice. It was a godlike voice that told me that. And that's before everything happened. All the craziness happened, them trying to kill my son several times. all of that. Even before Biden signed it into law in 2021, the Havana Syndrome was already out here. They gave it a new name, but it's called infrasound magnetic waves, which is spelled INFRA, magnetic microwave frequency. SOUND, INFRASOUND, microwave frequency. A nuclear physicist told me how to spell it so that I'll be able to look it up when I got home, because he said, all the things you're telling me, it sounds like that's what you have. And they call it Havana Syndrome. It's not a coincidence that I know Patrick J. Murphy and Barack Obama call it Havana Syndrome. I am not going to buy that for 1 minute. Not even 1 minute. Because it doesn't make sense to. All those years my husband and I were estranged, they couldn't find me someone to last in a long-term relationship. I have not been out to dinner with a man, dinner with a man, dinner, flowers, holidays, hanging out with my family doing holidays. None of those things happened. Whenever I showed up at people's house, they always asked me, where's your man? How come you always never have a man? I never knew how to explain to them about this Havana Syndrome. Not to explain to a man about Havana Syndrome, but how to explain to them this thing on my head. Because they wouldn't understand. They would think I was crazy and that I needed help. But I'm not crazy. I want to share my story with you because I think it's a very important story to share. You don't find too many black people out here talking about Havana Syndrome and their mouth is twisted and their tongue is being stuck to the top of their mouth, and they talk about everybody's walking around like it's normal, like they're normal. Well, they probably are. Some people probably have a little bit, some people probably have a lot, but no one has as much as I do. This is very painful, and it's just unbelievable, needs to stop. It causes me so much pain, physical pain. Sometimes I can't sleep. I get 2 hours of sleep in intervals. I get 2 hours of sleep, I get up, I go back to sleep, probably another hour later, 2 hours of sleep, another hour later, 2 hours of sleep. Before I know it, it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I can't go back to sleep. And then if I do take a nap during the daytime, then it defeats, I can't even say the word. And it's not even funny. I can't even defeat the purpose of saying that's going to sleep. It defeats the purpose of trying to get a full night's rest. My eyes just don't turn red as like they used to. My eye over here used to be so red whenever I didn't get enough sleep, when I was getting like 2 hours of sleep a night, or 4 hours sleep a night. It would turn back, it would turn red. But I want to say this before it gets time to say have a good night and talk about the closing of Havana Syndrome with my family. You never know who it might hook you up with. You never know. You could get hooked up with someone who could shoot you. You get hooked up with someone who could try to kill you. You get hooked up with someone who try to love you, take care of you, treat you well, treat you nice, or treat you in between. You never know who the Havana Syndrome could hook you up with. To mean something good to you or mean something bad. You just never know. But my thing is that learn the people around you. Make sure that they're not trapped in a matrix where they could see how your life is operating around theirs. They need to see, you need to see, everybody needs to see if your life is operating around theirs in a matrix sort of way, like I am with my husband. And we still estranged because they're trying to keep all of us apart because it's too late to try to mix it up, because all the things they wanted to happen to us, they've been trying so hard to hurt us in so many ways with this thing. And physically, my kids, always threatening my kids with some physical harm. God don't do ugly things to people. I don't believe that. I don't believe God tell you ugly things. I don't think God tell you things gonna happen to you. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. So my husband and I are still estranged. And even though we are still estranged, we have kids, we got grandkids that we need to raise together. That's how I feel. I feel like he needs to be a part of my life. I need to be a part of his life to do that. Because once they made a mess of my life and then try to code me around HBCUs like Frisk University, Tennessee State, Mary McLeod Bethune-Cookman, Bowie State. There's another one. I can't think of it right now because this thing is tightening my head. Can't think of it right now. But they all around HBCUs. And all my friends graduated from HBCUs and they're doing pretty well. And their kids are going to HBCUs and they're doing pretty well. So I want to say with closing, thank you guys so much for listening in to Shall Thou Bough Break podcast and learning a little bit every time I come on about Havana Syndrome and learning a little bit every time about how Havana Syndrome can affect your life, how you could have a mate in your life that could harm you as a mate and you don't even know that he is in your life because Havana Syndrome put him in your life, like my husband and I. We both were born on birthdays, holidays. He's Halloween, I'm Martin Luther King. I always thought that something was very strange about that part. And the part about, just like it told me about my son, how my husband was going to leave if I didn't take him back. Years ago when I was in my 20s, if I didn't take him back, he going to find someone. And he found someone. And Morgan State, that's what it is. And Morgan State, those 5 HBCUs. There's probably more than that. I just haven't connected the dots to my whole family history to see what more HBCUs they don't want us to help out, and how much more Black communities they don't want us to help out. It's just shameful that someone could be in this world with that much hatred for someone who does so good, who did the world so good. And with that being said, I'm going to say have a good night. Thank you for tuning in. And tune in next week because I'm going to be talking about HBCUs next week on Shall Thou Bough Break podcast.